Hello, YouTube. My name is Ben Gessel. Um, this is my first uh, YouTube video, and hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully it's a good one. I'll be, as I post videos, talking about a number of different subjects, um, quite a few of them, and hopefully they're of interest to you out there. Today, being July 15th, 2016, about 10 o'clock in the evening, I thought I would talk a little bit about imagination. This is a uh, kind of a key word for my life, and I guess you'd say a very important concept for me. For a number of reasons. But whether you're a composer, a creative writer, artist, anything in the arts, or anything really, you have any interest in anything imaginative, this video is for you. Hopefully you can get something from this video. So I want to talk about the sources of inspiration for myself. The first thing I want to talk about really has to do with life, the life I had when I was little. We all, when we talk about the imagination, we really should start with our mindset when we were little. For me, there were certain authors that had a much bigger impact on me than others. I will name one of these authors in this video. That author is Eric Carle. And, you know, it's such a simple... These books that he's written really, you might think, yes, they're for kids. His collage techniques and things he does in visual arts, but there's quite a bit to what he does that is goes well beyond that. When I was little, I was very taken to another place, another world, and I just started making what we call free associations. There's some things out there that help you to make free associations between color and music, or color and personality, or food, different kinds of tastes, different kinds of foods and colors and personalities, and so forth. All kinds of things. Eric Carle's books, they're for kids primarily, but because of, again, the way that he approaches color, for me, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, especially in that right in that time frame, it was very easy for me to look at a strawberry. Like, for instance, he had made a book about was it the Hungry Caterpillar? I believe I might be mistaken in that title, but the way he simply presented the strawberry, it really triggered that taste of, or that memories of eating a strawberry. And it has something to do with the texture that he used. And so he was just for me, he was a big deal. Again, even though you might think that something by Eric Carle might just be for kids, trust me, there is something to be gained for older folks as well. So I, when I was little, would make free associations all the time. I also recommend, actually, there's one other, she's a photographer, an author, Tana Hoban. I hopefully I pronounced that right, Tana Hoban. I remember reading her books when I was little, looking at her books on color. I recommend those as well, especially for the little guys. 4 years old, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. But so free associations are very important. Anybody in the arts who's doing anything creative, anything imaginative, anything, you need to always be thinking about how, just naturally, you should naturally be thinking about how one thing is connected to something else. Because a classic example, if you're going to write music for a film, and there's so many things that you really need to be learning, and it's not easy. But one of the things that should come naturally to you is when you see a movie, or you should be able to take emotions or personalities or settings, one's emotional reaction to a setting or any event in a movie, and you should already be making connections between, again, emotions and harmony, or instrumentation, dynamics, tempo, all these things. But that connection that you make has something to do with free association. It's not something that is academic in nature. It is something that is very emotional and introspective, and very subjective ultimately. But it works, and it's something that's important to mention, because without that ingredient, no matter how skilled of a composer you are, you need to be able to be effective dramatically. You need to be able to write music that goes with the movie. But that's, again, we'll talk about that in a little bit different video, a little bit more in depth. So other sources of inspiration, aside from books, for instance, on color when I was younger, wherever I went when I was a little boy, I was just I took everything in. And sometimes there are some memories that are especially dear to me that still are sources of inspiration. They're still sources of inspiration to this day. There's just so many that I could mention. But relatives, great aunts, great uncles, grandparents, they're a big deal. And as well as, even things like birthday parties. Another source of inspiration for me sometimes are dreams. Particularly not just nightmares, but if you want to do something about more frightening, some kind of project that's involving more frightening emotions. But things, there's all kinds of things you can dream about. But often, many of my dreams more in my young adult life have involved prior work or current work, prior school work, things involving different kinds of settings, in social settings, and but dreams are very, they can be a little bit personal and sensitive, but for me, they are a huge source of inspiration. Huge. Some artists are even more introspective than other artists, or anybody that's involved in anything imaginative. Others a little bit less so, or they're more connected with things that are just cerebral. But dreams are a big deal in anything imaginative. I'm just going to mention that one of the biggest, most influential books, no matter how whimsical or how odd it is, still for me is Alice in Wonderland. Because it is so unconventional with regards to the nature of its plot. We're very used to often some kind of good team or good forces or good people versus ultimately someone that's bad or evil forces. It's great. It never gets old, that idea, that train of thought. But it's great to read books that are different. They're set up differently, fundamentally set up differently than that. It's very refreshing. And so I recommend Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. Other things that are very influential, very sources of inspiration for me. The arts are uh, various kinds of plants. I recommend going to Beauchart Gardens if you can. If you're in the Northwest, I'm a Northwest guy, but if you are in that vicinity of Victoria, British Columbia, I highly recommend going to Beauchart Gardens. It's the best rose garden, the best botanical garden by far I've ever been to. But there are places where you can, if you're a composer, you're an artist, you're a creative writer, poet, anything like that, you will get inspired. Trust me. Especially if you love flower gardens. Of course, food, sweets, candy, like Willy Wonka, these things can be sources of inspiration. So I am very fond of certain fantasy adventure books as well. Wheel of Time, Harry Potter, sure, it's a little bit popular, but Wheel of Time, The Hobbit, the movie The Last Unicorn, David Eddings' works, I think Lloyd Alexander even, as well as Disney's Black Cauldron. These kinds of books and movies, as well as certain other things, like say a few video games I played in the past, Baldur's Gate, in particular, also the Wheel of Time video game, even video games like Loom, Legend of Creandia. These kinds of games, books, and movies really have had a bigger influence on me in fantasy. But I really am fond of landscapes. I think landscapes really do set, or thousands of different kinds of landscapes. They set the tone. And you want, of course, as a creative writer, artist, if you're writing music based on something like that, you always want to be doing something that's somewhat original, yet still aesthetically pleasing. It goes without saying that we tend to tire of rocky gray caves a little faster than we do lush green forests. That's just the way we are as humans. That's a tendency, it's a generalization, but it is, I think, still true. There's some truth there. So, landscapes. And then you can start with landscapes. If you start with characters, depends on what you're doing. But I really think that a lot of the books and the movies and the video games that I've enjoyed the most have had the most vivid landscapes, as well as the most beautiful landscapes. So I'm also fond of going to parks for a source of inspiration. I know Beethoven was fond of going to parks, just going out and walking around, and that's something that I just don't do enough of a lot of times. But it's it can be therapeutic. I'm particularly fond of larger parks that have flower gardens again, or aquariums, zoos, but it can be a little noisy. So oftentimes we're talking about flower gardens, forests, beaches. So then, of course, different kinds of music, different kinds of art. There's a Polish artist that I'm very fond of, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this name. I believe it's Jacek Jurka. That's Jacek Jurka, Yerka. His artwork is definitely worth checking out. It's extremely high quality, and he's one of the best artists living. Musically, I'm very fond of many composers, and that's another subject. But Morten Lauridsen, John Rutter, as far as other living composers, certainly John Williams and many other folks like him. I'll get into that's a different subject, but there are certain composers that have been very inspirational to me. I've looked up to quite a bit. Certainly also certain kinds of architecture, not just European kinds of architecture, but Europe has a good deal of course, very beautiful architecture, very influential architecture. There's certainly other cultures, other places that have had remarkable buildings and remarkable styles of architecture. But I'm very fond of cathedrals and all kinds of stuff. So of course, space. Looking out into space, it tends to trigger various thoughts. And of course, there are things that I do in music composition, creative writing, that involve, of course, the realm of spiritual and religious thoughts. And that's kind of a train of thought throughout everything I do. And there's certainly other things that have been inspirational to me, but these are some of the big areas. And none of them are really much more important than the others. And again, there's many other things I haven't touched on in this video, but my hope is that this is, again, helpful to those of you out there that are working in any project where you just need something new. Like we get bored, we get in a rut very easily as artists, as composers. It's important to reach out and try new things all the time, whatever we can, whatever we have access to. I'm pretty fortunate living in the Northwest. I should do a lot more, sightseeing and things. But hopefully live in a place where you have some places, some landscapes you can be inspired by. And so, again, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I will be making more. But again, my name is Ben Gessel, and it's good talking to you, YouTube. I'll catch you all later. All right. Have a good night. Have a good evening.